It's been called the Black Ellis Island and regarded as one of the great archaeological finds in recent American history. Yet many New Yorkers are unaware that there once was an enslaved population in New York, let alone an African burial ground. Remains dating back to colonial times were discovered in 1991 during construction of a federal office building. An estimated 20,000 remain buried below Duane and Elk Street, 5 city blocks north of City Hall.
A team of archaeologists did test excavations. It was known by May of 1991, because of those test excavations, that hundreds of burials would be found.
Chris Moore is a historian and research coordinator at the Schoenberg Library for Research in Black Culture, and he explains how a city could be built on top of a cemetery.
If you do any land purchasing in New York City, you have to do a title search. So any building, any property that would have been developed on that area would have, in their search, found a map from 1755, which indicates quite clearly that there was a Negro burial ground at the location. It is a convenient amnesia. When the story first broke on October 9th, 1991, all the newspapers in Manhattan did the story. But within a week, I can remember trying to tell them some more stories, but editors would say, we did that story.
While the site was designated as a National Historic Landmark in 1993, 16 years passed before a monument was built. During that time, the African descendant community of New York fought the government for proper recognition and care of the remains.
I went down to the cemetery and asked the federal officials, have they found anything, because I'd heard that there was a cemetery there. And I asked archaeologists, both federal officials and archaeologists said, well, we really don't know. And as I was leaving the site, a couple of workmen pulled me aside and said, do you want to know if we're finding bones? We're taking truckloads of bones out of here. So in terms of the forthrightness of the federal government, it was dashed for me when the workmen told me that they were taking bones out.
Adunia Shupa has been involved with the African burial ground since the beginning, advocating for the descendant community's right to the remains.
There was so much decisions being made around our African ancestors without our input. So we have to constantly voice that these are the people that belong to us, not to nobody else. Therefore, we should have the right and the decision making as to what happens with them and what is to be done with them.
Tara Morrison works for the National Park Service as superintendent of the African Burial Ground Monument site. She says the 16 years is a result of managing various efforts while trying to properly honor the site.
In the end, we do have appropriate commemoration for the site. And so in that regard, you can look at the time as a positive thing, in that the site was appropriately commemorated.
But even after 16 years, not everyone agrees the site has been properly memorialized.
It's just a piece of granite down there saying nothing. What does it tell you about the history? How would you know about the history of the African by that piece of monstrosity, is what I call it out there? What does it tell you?
It's a memorial. It's not a textbook. It's not a museum. Textbooks and museums are needed, but monuments are so necessary. If one thing we've learned about humanity the past few thousand years is monuments are helpful in a very real way. And those who are not memorialized are simply forgotten. So I would just advise those who are dissatisfied with the monument, they should be dissatisfied because we need more. But the monument itself is simply spectacular.
Rodney Leon is the architect of the monument and wanted to design it for both personal and professional reasons, but most importantly because he didn't want to see something of this magnitude go unrecognized.
There was the tragedy of people being constantly passing by the site for such a long time and not understanding the contributions of the people that were buried at the site and how they played such an integral role in that during the colonial era, and acknowledge those contributions in any serious way and understand the fact that people are walking also like sacred ground.
With the inauguration of the monument on October 5th, 2007, public education has now become the primary focus.
It's interesting to me, the visitors who come in and who will say, I didn't know anything about this site, or I didn't know slavery existed in New York. So that's an opportunity to begin to engage people. And with the opening of the memorial, it's evident now when people pass by the street who know nothing about it, they see this structure. And again, that draws them in to say, what is this? Why is this here?
It's really through the memorial memorial itself, that the educational process continues, and that's the mechanism by which that my involvement really extends itself in terms of like communicating and educating the public.
This is a miracle. This burial ground, its rediscovery, the fact that it lay buried literally for over 200 years, unknown in the in historic literature, fairly unknown today. 17 years ago it was a parking lot, and by 1993 it was a city landmark, then it became a National Historic Landmark, and today it is a National Monument Memorial on the same par as the Statue of Liberty. There is no higher designation than the African Burial Ground. It's only going to become more and more, it's going to become better known over time. But 16 years to go from parking lot to National Monument, it's a snap.
Well, it's our collective responsibility. So the day you learn about the site, it's then your responsibility to pass that message on, and then we can all continue to work together to educate the public.